Like X versus Sever.
Yeah, just like X versus Sever.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
Yow!
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Hola.
There we go.
Yes.
There's the highs that I like.
Sí.
And the lows.
Sí, senor.
Yeah, that's right.
Just gonna hi.
Yeah, exactly. Jeremy's iron. But we're gonna go right into the movie club today. We're gonna be talking about crime movies.
You should join our club. You and your friend.
Now, if you're not going to take this seriously, perhaps we should disband the club now.
I love being a part of things.
Yeah, baby.
You know, this is a way more expansive genre than I thought it was when I initially saw this.
Yeah.
I was looking at it and I was like, well, there's a few, because the thing that I think of when I think of crime movies is usually LA Confidential type movies.
Yeah.
Or gangster films.
Yeah.
And those certainly fit under it. But there are a lot of different kinds of crime movies, and it took me a while to think about them, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that fits under this, like a ton. This is the most I've ever written under a favorite, best, and all that. Although didn't write so much on the underseen, but the underrated was the ones that I hadn't seen, but the underseen I have quite a few of too.
Yeah.
So anyway,
so we're trying to limit it to, because a lot of movies have a crime that happens during
right.
it, but we want to go with crime-centric.
Yes,
movies. Yeah.
exactly. So, all right. So, what do we consider our best crime movies? Like
Godfather.
Dark Knight.
Dark Knight. Okay. I mean,
I can go with that.
I know. I agree with you. I'm just saying that I think. What do you think of when you think Dark Knight immediately? Comic book movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a crime film.
Okay, so then Heat.
Yes, Heat, and of course Goodfellas.
Yep. Untouchables.
Yeah, Untouchables. Yeah.
Last week when we recorded last week's episode and we were leaving, Barrett was like, "We're going to talk crime movies," and I literally on the steps of Chris's house went, "Dudaloon, That is. I'll just go ahead and jump ahead for 1 second. That's my favorite crime movie, The Untouchables.
Oh yeah,
that is. It's just like a snuggly Linus blanket.
And guess what, guys? De Niro's in all of them.
Oh yeah.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't in the first Godfather, but he was in Godfather Part 2, which basically same type of deal. But
do you think he's starred in more as far as A-list major star? He's been in more crime films than anyone else. It seems like a higher percentage of his films are crime films.
I'm not having thought of it, but I would say, yeah, probably.
Yeah, even up until Analyze This and Analyze That.
Crime films, yeah.
Right. He and Pacino have been in a lot, and they've both been cops. They've both been gangsters. Yep. They've done the whole thing there.
Yeah.
But obviously, we've talked a ton about Goodfellas. We've talked a ton about Godfather. I don't know if we've talked too much about Heat, but that's a movie that's right up there as far as, it's not as good as those two, but it's up there.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, man, well, that's the weird thing about Michael Mann, because he did Public Enemies not too long ago, right, with Johnny Depp and everything, which was a huge miss.
Yep.
And some of his later stuff just hasn't really landed for
me.
He did the Miami Vice reboot and everything.
There's some people who love that Miami Vice movie.
Really?
And I've never quite gotten that.
Interesting.
I remember watching it going, man, I cannot get on board with this.
Collateral's great.
Oh, yeah. That was probably his last great movie, I think, in my mind.
I would agree. And we both love The Insider.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say he's got more great than not great.
No, for sure. And he did the movie Thief too. James Caan was another good one.
Manhunter.
Manhunter. I mean, I know that. William Peterson.
By the way, do you hate that movie?
I do.
Okay, so I had never seen it all the way through, and it came on a month or so ago, and I was watching it. Man, I did not realize how much Red Dragon copies beat for beat from this story.
It is Red Dragon.
Yeah, I'm just saying when they made Red Dragon the movie with Ed Norton, I didn't realize how much was identical.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
Manhunter.
Because Manhunter is that book,
Right.
translated. But then they went back and I don't know. That's a sequel, I guess, a prequel that was completely unnecessary to me. Even though I don't like Manhunter, I didn't think. Of course, they were going to try to get all the Hannibal Lecter they could get out of Anthony Hopkins, and so they had to do it again. But I didn't think it was very necessary. I like it better than Manhunter, but I didn't think it was necessary.
So I just read an anecdote yesterday. Anthony Hopkins talking about being somewhere. I think he was in Florida, and a friend of his wanted to go see Silence of the Lambs. And so he went in and sat in the back and watched the movie with the audience. And when it was done, I guess the woman in front of him said something like, "What are you so worried about? It's not like Hannibal Lecter's in the theater." Turns around and sees Anthony Hopkins
Wow.
and goes, "Oh my God, he is!"
Oh God!
Can you imagine? Like,
Freak me the
because
fuck out,
remember, Anthony Hopkins wasn't exactly like a big name
Right.
actor for Americans at that point. He had a long career before this. I mean, super long. People who were like really into the know of movies knew it, but that was his movie that broke him out. Like he was in everything from that point forward. But just imagine, you see that guy after the movie. That's crazy.
That would fuck me up.
Yeah. Obviously Silence of the Lambs fits under this too. Is another one. And Untouchables. We talked about those movies a ton. So let's get into, I guess, some other bests of ours, and who wants to kick us off?
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned The Dark Knight, you mentioned Silence of the Lambs. When you throw those out there, Silence of the Lambs, I think horror. When you say Dark Knight, I think comic book movie. My best, I think, crime movie would be Pulp Fiction, which of course we've talked about a lot too. And it's weird because if you throw that out there and say, what's that genre? I don't know how to answer that. It is a crime movie. I guess that's the best fit for it, right?
Yeah, ultimately it's crime genre. I mean, there's not much else to it as far as genre. Like, it's not super multi-genre. You could say drama, comedy, stuff like that, but there's not any other kind of niche type of genre.
Yeah, it's not really action.
No.
It's kind of become its own genre because of how many people have tried to copy it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it fits very comfortably in just crime in general. I mean,
yeah, it's my best.
Oh yeah, and I would also I put that in favorite, but I'll get to that later. But I have a bunch listed down for the best, and I'm looking back and forth between all of these, and I'm going to say L.A. Confidential is my best.
Nice.
We did talk a bunch about L.A. Confidential before.
Not as much as we.
Not as much as we should have. But L.A. Confidential is just a masterpiece. The fact that Curtis Hanson and everybody took this 500-page book and turned it into a solid 2-hour movie is incredible in itself. But they keep all the same like perfect things about the book in it and everything, and it's a great mystery, and it just gets you into that. It gets you down and dirty. And
it's solid acting from the three leads. You're basically watching three completely different styles of cops, right? You've got Russell Crowe, who's like a physical thuggy cop who does some shady stuff. You've got by the book Guy Pearce, and then you've got Kevin Spacey, who's like the celeb cop who consults on TV shows and movies and whatnot, and is more of a celebrity than a cop. But yeah, I love this movie. In hindsight, I kind of feel bad about the way it went down in the bracket, and I'm glad we got a chance to show it a little more love.
But yeah, you have Mr. Goody Two Shoes. Guy Pearce is playing Edmund Exley. And he's hated in the department because he names names during a big incident that happens. And then you have Bud White, who is Russell Crowe's he's apparently just a meathead.
Yep.
And both of them have to show that they are more than that, or they prove that they are more than that throughout the movie. Exley has to get his hands dirty, as Cromwell keeps saying to him all the way through it. And Bud White has to think, and he's the one who kind of breaks it, because he goes to that woman's house and looks under the crawl space or whatever and finds the dead body, and he's like, I love that. It's like he goes through this whole plot thing, and he's like, that's why he's underneath this woman's crawl space, and he don't smell too good. But it's such a complex. It's such a complex plot, but it's not one that you're going, oh, what's going on? I don't understand. Why did that happen?
No.
And all that. It's
Everything
told
makes sense.
so well.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of moving parts to it. And by the end of it, when it, of course, is going to come down to a big gunfight at the end. The gunfight is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
And it just, the whole movie is perfect. I don't know if there's one thing about that movie I would change.
No, and I actually had a similar reaction to Kevin Spacey's death that I did Vincent Vega's death in Pulp Fiction.
Oh,
Because it
yeah.
was so shocking.
Yeah.
It was like, this is, at that point, like the lead character. This is the most well-known name. And I was like, oh, shit.
Now, that is a one big, huge departure from the book. Because, in the movie, that was the reason, because he goes Rollo Tomasi. And so Cromwell goes to Exley and asks about Rollo Tomasi, which is the fake person that Exley was talking about, the person who always gets away with it. That was not in the book, that whole thing. I can't remember in the book how they ended up. I think it was just regular police work or whatever is what ended up doing that. But in the movie, it's a more satisfying, type of thing where one last little salvo is what ends up, sending Cromwell into the, under suspicion and everything. Man, what a great movie, what a great cast, and I can't recommend this movie enough, and it should have been in like the final 8.
Cromwell is really great in this, man.
Yes.
Yeah. Like he's got that quote where it's like Exley goes after White or White goes after Exley, right?
Yeah.
Because he thinks he's cheating on his girlfriend or whatever. And Cromwell looks after him. He's like, I wouldn't want to be Edmund Exley for all the whiskey in Ireland.
Yeah.
Everybody's really great. It's a huge cast, right? You got Kim Basinger, David Strathairn's in this, and everybody really shines. Danny DeVito plays a great little scummy reporter. It's fantastic. It's better than we probably gave it credit for in that bracket. I already said my favorite in the next round is going to be Untouchables, but that's all. I'm just going to go ahead and call that the best because as much as I could try and find one that's not one of these heavy hitters we named off early, it's still in my opinion the best. It does everything better than everything else. It's the king. There's no point even debating it. Anyway, no, I love the Untouchables. I have a couple others I'll name.
I wonder if that's underseen at this point. You think?
Well, I think just due to age, it probably is.
It might be.
But what's great is it's aged really well.
Yeah, it has.
Because obviously it's a period piece, but it's also a lavish period piece in terms of like that scene when they're walking to go to the bank to raid the liquor that's behind the bank, and they walk down that street. You probably know which street it is because it's Chicago. But all the cars and it just looks like you're back then in that era. It's fantastic. Everything about it. Marry it. Love it and marry it.
All three of these movies, so you could watch these back to back to back, and a whole day's gone by, and you don't even care.
Yeah.
All right. So, what are some of your favorites?
All right. So, I already said Untouchables was my very, very, very favorite, but I got a lot of love for Ben Affleck in this category. Favorite crime movies. I could put Gone Baby Gone or The Town as my favorite. I've watched them both many, many, many times. The Town is more watchable for me because it's not as dour and depressing.
Yeah.
Gone Baby Gone, slightly better film. I want to throw some love out to Donnie Brasco.
Nice.
Which I don't think is quite small enough to be underseen. Maybe just due to age.
I don't know if this movie even did well back then. Depp doesn't even get any recognition in this movie. I don't think Pacino does either, as far as Oscars
They
and
both
all that.
should.
Yeah, and this was a high profile, everybody loved it movie, and somehow, some way, it fell by the wayside. And it might be just because it didn't make enough money to be something that was visible enough or whatever. And over time, you've gotten people who I'll hear people talk about it, but it's not like in that conversation. Like, remember Donnie Brasco? Wow, what a great movie! I don't hear.
No, I know it's so weird because it's one of the best mob movies I think I've ever seen.
Well, and Quiet Pacino is a very, very good Pacino.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is not screamy.
Nope.
It's the polar opposite of that, Devil's Advocate Al Pacino. We've talked about this movie plenty, too. Talked about how schlubby he is and how poor he is and how downtrodden. And he's been passed over so many times. He's so old, he's never going to get to be bumped up. And then Depp, because Pacino has such a showy performance, even though it's quiet, Depp doesn't get enough credit for the way he plays the slow breakdown.
Yeah.
And, he basically morphs into one of these guys.
Yeah.
I think the movie's kind of saying it's impossible for him not to, at least if he wants to stay undercover. Especially that scene where he's got the tape recorder in his boot.
Yeah.
And they go to a Japanese restaurant, and he's not going to take off his boot. And they're initially going to give him hell if he doesn't. The mobsters are. And then he tells this story about his dad who fought in the war, and I'm not going to take my boots off and basically gets a little racist.
Yeah.
And then they beat the shit out of that restaurant owner. They beat the shit out of him. And that was like the first domino, I think, that started him down the path to basically turning into a criminal, even though it ends with him being highly decorated, looking out the window, realizing how much of his life is gone now.
What a depressing scene, too, that last bit, because after however many years it was that he was in this undercover thing, they like unceremoniously like take him up, have him pose with the photo of like the plaque and everything, and then they get the fuck out of there. It takes like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, and then Anne Heche, man, took a lot of shit in the 90s.
Yep.
I feel like for her ability,
Well, you know what?
all that stuff.
I feel like that had more to do with Ellen than it had to do with anything else, because she's a terrific actress.
She really is, and she's great in this.
Now, she did have a meltdown that was well publicized and everything like that, but again, do we really judge the acting based on the melt? And the meltdown wasn't even that big. I mean, that's a big deal for her, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't anything we should be like upset about, it wasn't like she did anything wrong, didn't commit crimes or anything. But all through the 90s, she was getting some shit, man. And people started like looking at her like she was kryptonite or something, man. It was weird.
And she plays kind of an unlikable character in this, in that she's got to be, the sense of and the conscience of Joe Pistone in this, and she comes off as a super wet blanket. But it's like, how would you react? Like, you got kids here, you got a guy that's never there. He turns into a fucking mobster. He's
sneaking in when he does come by just to get some money. Yeah. I mean, she's very put upon. And she plays the role really great.
It does. I mean, they have this scene in the therapist's office where the therapist is like, "What are you scared of, Joe?" And he's like, "I ain't scared of nothing." And she's like, "I ain't scared of nothing. I'm married a college man."
Yeah.
Like, he puts on his sunglasses and everything, just completely checks out. And like, how would you react to that?
And of course, it has that great classic scene about the forget about it and all that, which sort of put that in the public vernacular, basically, was all that. Donnie Brasco, by the way, came out in February of 1997, which is the same year as Devil's Advocate, if you believe it or not. But it made $41 million. Now, we've answered two questions here. First, it didn't make that much money. Even for 1997, $41 million is just middling. But it came out in February, which is another like classic Oscar miss type of month. If it comes out in February, they tend to forget about it later.
Forget about it.
Yeah, forget it. That's right. That's correct. But it did made another $83 million in the foreign market, so it made $120-something million.
Man, great cast. Michael Madsen is great. Oh, you should watch this movie.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
That's a good pick.
Yeah.
I got other favorites.
I got Wolf of Wall Street as one of my favorites. Okay. And that's a pretty. It's a crime movie. Of course, Scorsese, specializes in this type of thing. But it's just so enjoyable. It's so bright. It's so fast paced. Even though it's a long as shit movie, isn't it? Like a 2.5 hours.
It doesn't feel like it though.
It's breakneck.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh man, it's so good, and it's unlike a lot of the shit that Scorsese does, just because it kind of traffics in a lighter shade.
It's a comedy.
Of the crime. Yeah.
It's straight up a comedy.
It's a vulgar comedy.
Yes, it is.
Make no mistake.
Yeah.
One of the most R-ratedest movies that come out in the last few years. But I love it. Yeah, it's just so fun to see everybody going to such extremes, right? And there's no bones about it from the get-go. Leo's a criminal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Rob Reiner's fantastic.
He is. Yeah. I remember it was around Christmas that this came out. Mm-hmm. And the three of us were hanging out at a restaurant, and we asked Chris had seen it, and Jeremy and I were seeing it the next day, and Chris said, "This movie does nudity very well." And then when we saw it, yes, you're absolutely right.
I know what he means.
Yes, indeed. And really, you can't go wrong when it's Margot Robbie.
Oh my God, she is gorgeous.
But yeah, it's one that, typically doesn't fit in that mold of a crime movie that we typically think about. I think of like crime movie, I think of smoking gun, guy in a suit and all that other type of stuff. I wrote down Wall Street as
Nice.
as one in my favorites as well. Wall Street, obviously way less of a comedy. And there's like hardly anything that's funny in that movie.
I agree.
But it's a different kind of crime movie. And I think we sort of, it's easy to look at a movie like Wall Street and not see smoking guns and stuff like that and not consider it a crime movie, but it's totally a crime movie. There's, the people on the law enforcement side are hardly ever seen throughout it until the very end. But these guys are just committing crimes the entire time. It's no different from like going out and slinging hash and stuff like that.
You mean at Waffle House?
Yes.
Smoke hash.
That's right.
That's funny. Actually, the last 3 movies we talked about had people wearing wires.
Ooh, yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that weird how we just keep doing that? Now it makes it sound like we did it on purpose.
In fact, this genre is now movies with people wearing wires.
That's right. Yeah, Wall Street is so good.
Wall Street's got a badass cast too, man. I mean, top to bottom, when you got Martin Sheen and John C. McGinley and like all these these bit characters that show up and are really, really good. And it's Daryl Hannah too, right?
Yeah.
Look at like the peak Daryl Hannah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, man.
Absolutely. And she's like, her character is kind of strange. You kind of root for, you kind of root for Bud Fox to kind of like get with her, but she's an awful person. She's awful. Such an awful person. Cause she's pretty and all this other stuff. But once they have the argument about, he's like, we can get by and all that. And she's like, I don't want to get by. Yeah. It's like, and Gordon Gekko warns him early on. He's like, you won't be making enough money to satisfy a woman like Darian if you keep going this way or whatever. And exactly. You told him right up front, you're going to have to make money to keep this girl.
Wasn't he was with her before Bud Fox was,
but
right?
they never once tell him that, which is that's a great thing in that movie, by the way. That is something that they put a seed of early on where he's like, did you tell him about us? He's like, what? No, are you kidding me? Blah, 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 blah. That sounds like something that's going to end up being the thing that breaks them up later on, but he never finds that out.
He never does?
No.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's a great thing. They end up breaking up because of that argument about we can get by. I'm going to go against Gordon and that. And maybe at one time they thought about doing that where you find out that happened and that's how they broke up. But maybe the guy came up with a better thing there.
Best Oliver Stone movie?
Oh man, it's the one that I've watched the most.
Yeah, me too.
But I think Platoon might be his best.
Those two were really right up there, right?
And then after that, in the 90s, you have JFK, which is an excellent movie. We've talked about JFK a bunch, but JFK is an excellent movie. I don't know what people's real thoughts on Natural Born Killers are. I love that movie. I don't think it's his best, but there's some people who absolutely hate it. And then, it's between those two.
Yeah.
I think you guys are forgetting about Nixon.
No, Nixon. I don't mind Nixon. I thought it was all right.
Nixon's got moments.
It does. It has moments.
But it's certainly not his best.
No, I was joking about that.
Then you have Born on the 4th of July, and you have Heaven and Earth. He has that whole Vietnam trilogy, basically. And he hasn't really made anything to that level past Natural Born Killers and the Nixon era. After that, you got people who'll maybe be fans of U-Turn and stuff like that.
I kind of like U-Turn.
But everything past that, he's really kind of been like, he's never been the same.
Yeah, W and World Trade Center and all that stuff. Yeah.
Bushy.
So yeah, it's got to be between those two, right? All right. So underrated.
Underrated? And then we'll do Underseen after that?
Yeah, baby.
All right. I have a couple I definitely want to name off here. One is Mr. Brooks.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
with Kevin Costner,
Mm-hmm.
Dane Cook
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right.
This movie is 55% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That is so weird to me.
And I am bewildered by that. First of all, everyone I've ever talked to in person about the movie likes it a lot, including me. But I don't even see enough flaws in the film for there to be that many critics that didn't like it. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So I felt so out of place when I saw this score. I was like, well, that is definitely underrated.
Well, and that's a movie that's definitely got, what proves your point here is that the IMDb has it at like 7.3 or so.
Okay.
So it's, in general, people love that movie. I remember when it came out, I remember watching it and going, man, that was really good. And there was talks of that being a big, huge movie franchise,
Like a franchise, yeah.
if it did well, and it of course didn't. But man, I think we lost something there. If we could have gotten a franchise out of that.
What do people not like about that movie? I mean, it's really great for
like
what
I
it
said,
is.
I think people liked it. I just don't think they spread the word enough to get people to come out and see it when it mattered.
Yeah.
Now you may have a bunch of people who enjoy it and love it or whatever, but I mean, now it's been 10 years since it's come out, something like that.
Yeah.
Kevin Costner's even older, and
Is Dane Cook still alive?
and I think he is.
Okay. I haven't heard anything from him.
We can't prove that he's not.
He's probably in Vegas. We'll probably see him next
Probably
week.
is.
I love that part when he's pissed himself because he's so freaked out of what Dane Cook has.
Mhm.
And he's basically threatening Costner, I'll turn you in. He's like, who are they going to believe? Me or you? I'm a respected doctor. Like, I'm not the one that just left my DNA all over the floor.
What about you?
All right, so I've got one that's underrated and probably underseen. It's a movie called Suicide Kings.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I saw this a long time ago. I haven't seen it in forever.
I think it was a play before it turned into a movie, and it plays like a stage play. It's got like a veritable who's who of potential in the 90s. It was 97. It was Jay Moore, Jeremy Sisto, Sean Patrick Flannery, Henry Thomas, like all these like young up and coming 90s stars.
Christopher Walken.
Yeah,
And
which is
Christopher
where
Walken,
which is where I believe Jay Moore ended up getting his Christopher Walken impression was based on that, because he tells a story about like Jay Moore's dog or something. Jay Moore talks about his dog, and Christopher Walken's like, "I'm concerned about your dog," and it tells this whole story. Jay Moore does,
But it's great, man. They Christopher Walken plays this mob guy, and they kidnap him to try to get money to get the main character's sister back. And they start off by cutting off his finger, and he's hooked up to this contraption IV drip because Jeremy Sisto's character is a medical student, and it plays really, really interestingly. It's not the greatest movie in the world, but it's smart and it's funny and it's witty. And in the meantime, while they've got this kind of scene set up, Dennis Leary is Christopher Walken's henchman, and he's looking for him all this time. So he's like doing his own investigation and just like beating the shit out of people and like trying to find Christopher Walken. Eventually, well, I won't spoil it, but anyway, it's very interesting. It plays very tight. It's a pretty quick movie, and it's like 34% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's definitely underseen and I think very much underrated. It's a good movie.
Yeah. I'm gonna go right up into the muck here, and it'll probably be a divisive one. But Pain and Gain.
All right.
Actually, I've never seen this, but everyone I know who has really liked it. Actually, but
Yeah.
that's basically you and one other guy.
Right. I mean, Michael Bay, obviously, when you watch his movies, it can cause headaches, and they should really put symptoms down. Like, can cause headaches. Pregnant women shouldn't see them.
Your kid will come out stupid.
And Pain and Gain is not like a smart movie by any means. I mean, at least the characters aren't. So it's one of those where you're sort of dwelling around with all these like just bottom feeder guys or whatever. But Michael Bay seems to be better when he's not doing these big, huge action special effect movies. I don't know why. And Pain and Gain, I don't know what kind of rating it has. I'll look it up real quick. But I'm pretty sure because it's Michael Bay that nobody really liked it.
Well, how do you watch this movie? Did you go into it with super low expectations and were just
obviously because anything Michael Bay related is generally I'm going to consider that trash until I'm proven otherwise. At this point, he does not deserve the benefit of the doubt. But it is one of those type of crime movies where just like the stuff that happens in it, like they'll do stuff and then they'll be like The Rock is like doing narration in it and everything. So, well, this is not exactly. I mean, it's kind of like how Big Short did it later on. Like it's like well, the difference between what really happened and here, you know, they'll go through all that type of stuff. You know, they'll go through the difference between what really happened, what happens in the movie. But it's hyper edited. And it's got a lot of stupidity in it. But for whatever reason, this time it works because it's not a big dumb action movie. It's just it's a big dumb crime caper or whatever.
Is it kind of like Bad Boys?
No, I mean, how do you mean?
Meaning that, you know, a buddy action
as
movie,
much comedy
that kind
as
of
action.
thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's trying to make you laugh, even though these guys are doing horrible things. Like that's the thing that's one conflict you might have in this movie. Is that they're trying to make these guys seem like good guys and they're doing horrible, awful things. But I mean, it's worth a look. Now, I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember coming out of it going, I kind of like that.
It seemed to be the consensus.
Yeah. I mean, it has enough moments in it to recommend to somebody, you know, and Michael Bay very rarely does that.
Yeah.
It's that and The Island and maybe The Rock, and that's about it for me.
Yeah, that's about
Which
it.
are the three of his movies that are having the most fun.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
well, and some people will put Bad Boys in there too. I mean, Bad Boys has got its moments too. This is his first movie before he got really crazy, but
Yeah.
I'm Mike Lowry.
Why do I keep tripping over my shit?
all right. So, what about Underseen?
Boy, I have a lot I want to mention.
Bring it.
I've mentioned Safe Men before.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've mentioned Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels before. Both Underseen and both great. But I want to talk right now about a movie called The Lookout.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And it's one of two movies I'm going to mention where a security guard at a bank gets roped into a heist of that bank. Come back to the other one later. This is written and directed by Scott Frank. The Lookout is. Scott Frank is the writer of Logan and Out of Sight, as an example. Hasn't directed a bunch of stuff. And I hope that's enough to rope you in, because it's a very small movie. It doesn't have a lot of twists and turns. It's just basic, because he's a little bit handicapped mentally. Like, he's slow, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is, and he's being taken advantage of. But how everything unfolds, I think, is really watchable and fun. And it's a movie I've never heard anyone talk about at all. And it came on like 6 months ago, and I watched it just on the power of Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And I was really glad I did.
This is a great movie. I'm ashamed to say I haven't seen it since it's come out.
Yeah, me neither.
But man, it's great. It's a great movie.
Yep.
I mean, it's something that, you know, these movies, you know, when you see the title of it and when they're at what point in the year they come out, you know that they're not going to do anything.
Right.
They're hoping that they get a big hit out of it, but they always just sort of come and go, and nobody ever gets to see them. I hope out of this podcast we get people to see The Lookout, because it's a really good movie.
One other one I want to throw out that's probably better for underrated, but it's also underseen. It's a movie called Empire State. You ever heard of this movie? Me neither, till about 2 days ago when it came on TV. Let me tell you who's in this movie. Luke Hemsworth, Michael Arangiano guy from Sky High, Turtle from Entourage, Ziggy from season 2 of The Wire, Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
What?
I kid you not. And I'm like, this is one of those moments where I'm like, how does a movie with these people get made and I never hear about it, ever? His dad, Luke Hemsworth's dad, is played by the guy from The Wire season 3? No, season 2, the Greek boss, not the old guy, but the guy under him with the beanie cap. So the premise of this movie is Hemsworth is a security guard at some kind of armored car depot distribution center where every now and then there's a truck full of money left over one night, and then it gets picked up the next day. And his friends basically coerce him into becoming part of this bank robbery. And they go to rob the bank that night, but before they can, the cops show up Dwayne The Rock Johnson, because they've gotten a tip somebody's going to hit this bank. And then somebody does, and it's not our guys.
Oh.
And there's a shootout, and then our guys go, well, the cops will never expect the bank to be robbed the next night after this. So they try to go through it again. Everything goes to hell. It's not great. I think it was like a 5.5 on IMDb because I don't think it ever hit theaters for some reason. But it's one of those movies where the cast is so A-list, and they're all good enough actors, and you don't really know what's coming, so you kind of just keep watching to see where it's going to go. There's like a really powerful Colombian drug lord. There's like a really powerful Greek criminal. And I looked it up afterwards. This is based on a real heist in the 70s in New York.
Really?
Because there's one point where somebody's talking to Rudy Giuliani, and at that point he's like the DA or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, this was a heist that really happened. They decided to put together a dramatic version, cast it with a lot of great people, and then they made us, basically an average movie. But it was better than I expected it to be for something I'd never heard of. Usually, if a movie like that has that many names and you've never heard of it, there's a reason.
Yeah.
It's a big flaming turd they didn't want you to see.
Exactly.
This is not that bad. I found it quite enjoyable.
This is a Hemsworth. This is the third Hemsworth brother.
Well, who are the first two?
Is it Liam Hemsworth or Luke Hemsworth?
Shit, I said Luke. It's Liam. It's the one that...
you said Liam at first, I think.
Okay.
And then
well,
you
it's
said
the one
Luke.
engaged to Miley.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Liam.
Yeah, that's Liam.
The less charismatic one.
Yes.
So, Underseen.
Underseen. I think Nightcrawler is Underseen.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I think it is.
Man, that's such a good movie. It's not a comfortable movie to watch.
No.
It'll make you feel... I mean, all these movies cast the criminal as the protagonist. Like in The Town, you feel for Ben Affleck, even though he's done some shit in his life. And The Godfather, you feel for Michael Corleone, even though he's the worst person in the world. But Nightcrawler never makes you want to root for this guy, Jake Gyllenhaal's character. You just kind of, he's your eyeballs. Like he takes you through this whole thing, and it's skeezy, but it's compelling.
Yeah.
It's really, really good stuff. Rene Russo is awesome.
Oh,
This
yeah.
too, man.
It's super dark, and I think this is the movie that officially sold me on Jake Gyllenhaal, even though I saw a tweet from Jeremy last night about some movie that apparently he sucks in. So
Okay, it's Okja.
yeah.
I want to talk about this movie.
Okay.
This is the new movie from Bong Joon-ho, the guy that made Snowpiercer. After watching Okja last night, it's a Netflix original, I want to watch everything this guy makes.
Really?
Because he is so far outside the box in creativity, he doesn't even know a box exists.
Huh.
But the one drag on this movie is Jake Gyllenhaal, because remember how far over the top, what's her name was in Snowpiercer, the bad guy?
Oh, yeah.
Be a shoe.
Tilda Swinton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's in this movie, too. He goes that far, but nothing else in the movie is going that far up. He's like an overcaffeinated Jack Hanna, American zoology expert guy who is in several scenes, but he's playing it like Jack Black in Tropic Thunder. Like, he's just so far over the top. It was hard for me to like that performance, but everything else about the movie is fucking magical.
Really? You really liked it?
Brilliant. I liked it a lot. I really did. It's message heavy, but yeah, I really liked it a lot. I want to see what this guy does moving forward, because he just does not give a shit how they normally do movie making, and it's exciting. Anyway,
but in reference to Nightcrawler, though, I just sort of officially got on board with Jake Gyllenhaal with that. He's been in some interesting movies over the years, and you're like, okay, well, at least he's trying to be an actor and everything, which is not what you see a lot of stars do these days. He's really picking some really dark and interesting territory to go into. Especially if you look at some of his Denis Villeneuve movies, he's really good in Prisoners and Enemy.
Did you see the Demolition movie?
I had not. No.
Oh, it's good.
Is it really?
It's really enjoyable. His wife dies, and he kind of slowly starts to lose it, and gets fascinated with taking things apart.
Yeah.
Destroying things, eventually houses. I found it really enjoyable. He was really good in it, though.
Doesn't he befriend a young child?
Yeah, he does.
So it's a bad Santa type of thing?
Not quite. He does befriend a young child.
On my Underseen, out of the ones that now, we mentioned Lone Star before.
Oh, yeah.
good.
And I do want to mention it here. Go find Lone Star.
Yeah.
That movie is a huge cast, a great mystery. Much like LA Confidential, goes over generations
Yeah.
as far as the mystery is concerned. Fantastic performances from Matthew McConaughey and Chris Cooper. What a great movie that is, and nobody ever talks about it. And in fact, I think I saw something. I was looking up its rating one time. I was like, no, that's way.
I know when it came out, it got critical praise.
Yeah, no,
That's the
it's-
only reason I ever watched
I mean,
it.
it's got a 7.6 on IMDb. That's good, but I remember seeing something. I think it may have run. See, you never pay attention to Netflix ratings, and never pay attention to like Comcast.
Yeah, oh,
and
yeah,
stuff like that.
oh, yeah.
Because all the worst people in the world are watching these movies, and they're like, "Well, shit, there ain't no titties in that."
Just yesterday, I saw a Friends episode where they were going to go to a movie, but Joey didn't want to go if it didn't have action, and they were saying he only wanted to see action movies. He's like, hey, I can watch a movie without action as long as it has nudity.
But I want to recommend Lone Star again for people who have not heard that movie before, because it's fan-fucking-tastic.
That's early McConaughey, right? Like
It is.
96?
Yeah, it's 96.
Yeah,
And,
same year as
huge.
Contact?
Yeah, Contact came out the following year.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Now, he had sort of that semi-breakout with Dazed and Confused, although I'm not sure that people were like all about some McConaughey after
probably
Dazed
not.
and Confused. That took time for people to start quoting that movie. I know in Hollywood he was extremely well sought after that movie, though, because that's when he got Time to Kill, which also came out in
Oh,
96.
yeah. Yeah,
also had Chris Cooper in it.
Oh, yeah.
Also, totally watchable.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And that's a huge cast.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's
Tremendous
in
cast.
that movie. Name a person. He's
Yeah,
in that movie.
they're in the movie. Anyway, Lone Star, great. I'm going to pick out one that I just recently saw, and that's Lucky Number 11.
Ah, this is Josh.
Josh Hartnett, who I tend to not like.
Yeah.
Also, you want to talk about guys I haven't seen in 10 years? Where's he been?
I saw him in Wicker Park. Did I tell you this story?
No.
I literally saw him at a playground. My kid was playing with his daughter, or his kid. I don't know if it was a son or daughter.
Jesus, dude. You're that's like Hollywood up there. You trick-or-treated at Theo Epstein's house. You saw him.
But I saw him in Wicker Park.
What?
He was in Wicker Park, the movie.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's pretty funny.
I looked over and I texted my wife and I was like, I'm at a playground with Josh Hartnett. And she said, who?
Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like Channing Tatum is taking all the Josh Hartnett roles these days.
That's true.
I don't know. It was weird. I was watching this, and I was like, man, I've always had this weird hang up about Josh Hartnett, and I don't know what it is exactly. I think it was my first introduction to him was, I believe it was Halloween H2O.
Yeah.
And I believe it was that movie that just set me off on Josh Hartnett for the rest of every movie he was in after that. Like everything. It was kind of like Ryan Philippe. I hated that guy too for whatever reason. I'm sure they're sweet people in real
You
life.
hated Ryan Phillippe because he married Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, that was
That's
that. That was
Yep.
that. Taking all our Nashville girls.
That's right.
But no, Lucky Number 11 is this movie about so it's got this beginning part where you see a kid and his dad at a horse race track or whatever, and this guy's gotten this information, and they go through this whole like, how did he get this information? It's all the way basically like somebody tells somebody something, somebody overhears something, somebody tells that somebody something, and so he's got this like sure thing horse that he's gonna get, he's gonna put all his family's money in on it, and the horse is gonna win, but it breaks his leg. Towards the end. So he owes all these gangsters money and all this other stuff. So then the movie fast forwards, and we have Josh Hartnett, who's like found himself in this weird situation where like all these bad things keep happening to him. And eventually he gets mistaken for this one guy that these two gangsters want him to do a job for them. And these gangsters hate each other. Both of them hate each other, and they both want different things out of him. So you have Morgan Freeman in one tower, and you have Ben Kingsley in another tower. And so Morgan Freeman tells tells Josh Hartnett that, I want you to kill this guy's son for me because he killed my son and everything. He's like, and Josh Hartnett just keeps telling him, I'm not the guy you're looking for, and all this kind of North by Northwest. They even reference that movie in the movie. And so it's a lot of this, playing off of each other and like, what is he going to do? And all this other type of stuff. Bruce Willis is in it, and he's obviously sort of puppeteering a lot of this behind the scenes. He's gone to both Morgan Freeman and Ben Kingsley and tells them, this is what I want this character to do. This is what I want Josh Hartnett to do. And so like, it's all this big, huge setup. And then of course it's got so many like nice twists and turns to it. Fun movie.
Yeah, it is. I remember it when I watched it when it came out, but it just didn't stick with me.
And I was under the impression this was a movie that that people just generally like, it's okay or whatever, but it's got a 7.8 on IMDb.
Really?
Which is really high.
Huh.
I remember when it came out, people saying this is really good, and it was one that I actually missed for whatever reason. It came out in April of 2006, which was that was the month that I believe I left for New York.
Oh yeah.
So I missed some stuff like that was coming out, and but it's way better than I thought it would be. When I first saw this movie come out, I was like, oh, that's probably not good at all. And I hadn't watched it until recently.
Well, it was marketed, if I remember correctly, as kind of like a Pulp Fiction, Smoking Aces type of knockoff type of thing. But God, that talent that's involved is no joke. Man.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a fun movie with some nice twists in it. It's and Lucy Liu is darling.
Mm-hmm.
She's darling in this movie. She is a national treasure in this movie.
Like X versus Sever.
Yeah, just like X versus Sever.
Sorry, ballistic X versus
That's
Sever.
right.
Exactly.
That's right. By the way, now that you mention it, that may be the worst movie I've ever seen.
It's one of the worst that I ever saw when I was working at a theater.
I was at my in between theater at the time that movie came out, Bell Forge, and I watched that movie. That was when that movie came out, and I don't think I've had a worse time watching it. Like I watching it all the way. Now it was a short movie. Right, I had the story about cut Dungeons and Dragons off in the middle. That's how I couldn't watch the rest of that movie. But that's when I watched the entire thing of, and I was like, "Man, what were they hoping to come out of this?"
At what point in this did they think they had something good?
Apparently, it was one of those movies where they chopped like 40 minutes out of it or something like that, and it ends up being like an hour and 20 minute movie.
Oh
and
my
it's
God!
It's bad. It's not good. Okay, so is there anything else that you guys wanted to bring up? I've got a few movies that we can talk about.
Let's go through honorable mentions because we got a bunch.
Under my best, I also wrote The Departed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Another movie where someone wears a wire.
That's right.
Yep. I have No Country for Old Men in there.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
of course,
a good
we've
one.
talked a bunch about that one.
Going back to The Departed, because you mentioned in Donnie Brasco, he becomes in almost all of these like immersive undercover movies, they end up becoming what they're investigating, right?
Yeah.
And The
In Too
Departed,
Deep.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think in The Departed, like he's got a pretty clear separation throughout, right? He never really goes all the way in.
Yes and no. I think he has at least half the same journey because we see him beating the hell out of people. Mm-hmm. We see him, setting fires and he's doing thuggy, crimey stuff. And the whole reason he even has any relationship with the therapist at all is because he gets so conflicted about what's going on. But unlike most of these movies, by the end he's trying to do the moral thing. He's trying to arrest Matt Damon. He hasn't turned into Matt Damon.
Right.
Of course, he doesn't get the chance. But
yeah,
he does find a way to dodge a lot of the things that Johnny Depp does, though, in Donnie Brasco. All the real major shit. I mean, he lets other people kind of do it, and he just kind of sort of stands in the background there. So he avoids a lot of these little shit jobs that Jack Nicholson keeps bringing up and finding a way to keep some of his good guyness in that.
Yeah, it always seems like he's got one foot out the door, which is a little bit rare,
right?
I mean, because in that whole scene where he walks out of the club and they're like, "You're a cop,"
Yeah.
And he's like, "What the fuck you? What are you talking about? You know, he didn't look at us, so you're definitely a cop."
Yeah.
And like you can tell, like he's always got that cop brain working throughout this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic movie.
I also list The French Connection here.
Yeah, all right. Popeye.
That's right. The
Second best car chase
second
ever.
best car chase to The Matrix Reloaded, according to Christian Harlow.
Man, we just gave him more shit this episode than we did when he was on.
Well, he's not here.
Yeah, exactly. He's not here, so it's easier. But no, The French Connection has got a great mystery to it. Great mystery. I love the scene where they're like tearing that car up, looking for all the evidence and everything. Gene Hackman is just absolutely fantastic in this movie.
By the way, have you seen French Connection 2?
I have not.
I was watching that the other day. Didn't watch the entirety of it, but that's really good.
Oh, yeah?
And I was looking it up. It's actually pretty highly regarded, too.
Oh, yeah?
But you don't hear about people talking about the French Connection, too.
I do have that movie, of course, like everything else.
Like every other movie ever made.
Like every movie ever made, I have it in that collection, but I haven't seen it. I also put in City of God
Yes.
and Simple Plan.
A Simple
nice.
Plan, I think, deserves to be in the underrated category.
Yeah.
Because it has so many surface similarities to Fargo that I think it got overlooked. And that was on a few months ago, and I watched it for the first time, I think since theaters. Everybody's really good in that.
Yes.
Bill Paxton is awesome, but Billy Bob Thornton is just killing it.
He's awesome in that movie.
It's such a great watchable movie. And
That's-
another movie where everything falls to shit.
Yeah, that's Sam Raimi sort of going over the territory that his friends, the Coen brothers, went over and everything. And he does a really nice job with that one. That's a great movie. In my favorites, I mentioned Wall Street. There's also Seven.
Yeah, man.
Zodiac. We've talked about those ad nauseum. Reservoir Dogs. The Sting.
The Sting is almost got my favorite over Untouchables.
Oh,
it's that good.
The Sting is so fantastic. And Jackie Brown, another one that I know we agree on. So those are all good in the favorites. In the underrated,
She goes, so you want to fuck? He's like, yeah.
And it's like what, a minute and 47 seconds.
That's the unsexiest sex scene
It really
ever.
is. Yeah. Just a bunch of people heaving and
Just
shit.
him pounding.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
In the underrated, I've mentioned this before, and of course nobody's with me, but the Ladykillers is one that I have in my underrated. It's definitely not the Coen's best or anything. I think it got unfairly shit on. I think it's a lot better than
I
people
do like how fast it all falls apart.
Yeah.
And how small the gap starts getting between scenes of them throwing bodies all over the
Yeah. But I really enjoyed the Ladykillers. I mean, enjoyed it for I think what it is. I don't think it's really aspiring to be a big, awesome Coen Brothers movie. On the underscene, I have The Killing, Stanley Kubrick's 1956 heist movie. That's another one that involves a horse trake.
I think you mean Heast.
Heist.
You know, like the singer Feast.
Sorry, I was doing a Dark Knight Rises joke.
What? I didn't hear. I don't remember that.
From the Dark Knight Rises video, the Cinemasins video. That was one of the sins, Heast.
Oh, because it's misspelled.
Yes.
In the movie somewhere.
Oh, I forgot about that. Sense.
I mean, that shit was 4 years ago. You gotta cut me a little slack.
But The Killing is another. It's another one based on a horse race track and everything. Sterling Hayden.
Yeah, we were watching it not too long ago.
Yeah. It's a good movie. In Bruges.
Oh my god,
another great one.
Now, this is a movie that juggles comedy and seriousness better than most, right? Because I think you could watch this movie and laugh so much you walk away thinking it's a comedy, but Colin Farrell has an arc here.
Yeah.
And he's like tormented, and he plays it really well. And despite all the comedy going on, there's something really horrible going on in that guy's brain. I love this movie. I think, but it's definitely underseen.
Yeah,
for sure.
Huge Harry Potter connection too with that movie. You got
Brendan Gleeson.
You got Brendan Gleeson. You got Ray Fiennes, and you got Colin Farrell, who was in the Fantastic Beasts.
Grindelwald.
You have Grindelwald and Voldemort in the same movie.
Oh yeah.
You know what I was shocked about the other day watching Shakespeare in Love?
Mm-hmm.
There's hardly anybody from Harry Potter in that movie. Like usually, usually you watch a movie with a bunch of British
Maggie
people
Smith in there or something.
when you see a movie with a bunch of British people, you're like, oh yeah, all these people have been in Harry Potter at least once. and there's only like one dude who plays like Ron Weasley's dad is in it. I think there's like nobody else. Judi Dench wasn't in one. Joseph Fiennes, Jeffrey Rush, Tom Wilkinson.
Yeah.
Nobody is there not?
Ben Affleck?
Is there not one fucking Harry Potter alum in this movie?
That's amazing.
They dodged it.
Yeah, they totally dodged.
Where was the Kenneth Branagh in Shakespeare in Love?
Yeah, exactly.
What the hell?
Where
man?
was it? Anyway, so those are. I mean, and those aren't even really touching the surface. This is a huge, huge genre. We've missed some.
Yep.
So in the comments, bring up the ones we missed because we missed a fuck ton. We're going to go on to our next topic now.
Yeah.
Special effects movies that really worked.
Come with me if you want to live.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us.
You gotta admit one thing. Can't beat the view.
Do not let go of my hand!
The special effects are as much a part of the movie, as much a part of the success of the movie as anything, I guess, is sort of the conceit here.
Mm-hmm.
Where it actually, the special effects are not a distraction. They actually work in the story. The first one that I came up with was Terminator 2.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that movie without the effects that it has in it.
Mm-hmm.
It makes that movie such a higher experience than it normally would have been. Regular robots chasing each other and fighting each other type movie. The idea of a liquid metal Terminator that can you can destroy him all you want to, but his pieces will always find a way to come back.
Yeah.
And there's so many great moments. And of course there's going to be running a theme through here because you have Stan Winston who's a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
James Cameron is always, like almost all of his movies, generally great effects. Yeah. But Terminator 2 is one of those singular moments where I can't imagine the movie without the special effects. And they're done so well, obviously.
Still hold up.
But even if they weren't done well, don't you think you would still like hold that movie in high regard because of the way it fits into the plot?
Yeah, I mean, because Terminator, the first Terminator, had for its time good effects, but those don't hold up as well.
Very old now, yes.
But yeah, that's exactly what you're saying, that it's still a great movie. Mm-hmm. And this just compounds it because it does have that extra leg of the amazing special effects.
We have by the time this episode comes out, the video will have come out, but we have Sins of the Patriot coming up.
Mm-hmm.
There's that scene early on when they go to Charlottetown and they're like, or Charlestown, sorry, and they're walking along the pier and there's all these ships.
Yeah,
it just looks fake as shit.
Oh,
and the sin is something like, well, that's the deal with CG, right? It ages faster than an NFL running back.
Yeah.
So I have Titanic on my list.
Yeah.
Another James Cameron.
Yep.
But I don't think the effects look as good today as they did when it came out. But when it came out, it looked fucking real as shit, man. When that ship breaks in two and starts bobbing in the water and people are falling and hitting the blades, and I mean,
yeah.
Okay, so
that movie doesn't work without CG at all,
right?
Because he built an enormous tank and had a scale model of the ship, right? And how much of that breaking in half, obviously the people falling and everything was CGI, but how much of that was practical versus CGI?
I don't know.
There is a definite combo of those type of things. I mean, that whole thing, I believe, is shot in front of a green screen because they're not in the water, obviously.
But there are that first shot where it pans over the whole boat Like, there's a lot of CG in that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of CG. That's one of the only times it didn't work for me.
Well, in fact, the CG is so bad on those that there you can see like little characters like fucking up, like they're
where they go,
yeah.
That guy keeps running into the wall.
All right, what is he doing? Yeah, it's like one of those things where you find the glitch in a video game, and like you somehow get Mario inside the rock, and he's just walking around inside the rock, and you can't get him out. It's like that, but like the whole syncing though is incredible.
Yeah.
Like I don't think there's anything in the syncing that you go, oh, that looks shitty today.
Oh no, I don't think so.
But it is. I mean, it is part practical too. That's the part of it.
So the impetus for this topic was that by the time this comes out, the most recent Planet of the Apes movie will have come out. And I think those are essentially the gold standard these days of effects-driven movies. We obviously haven't seen War for the Planet of the Apes yet, but Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is so good that you can't. It's almost impossible to believe that these aren't actual simians that you're seeing running around. Every bit of hair is perfectly rendered. The motion is perfect. The mocap is awesome. That is just, it's really taken it up a notch.
Look, if this movie is as good as they're saying it is, and I'm pretty convinced it is, War, I think we need to make this the year Andy Serkis gets an Oscar nomination. Whatever we have to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'll go march on Washington.
Yeah.
I doubt that'll help, but I'd do it.
Yeah.
It's got one side.
Yeah.
I'll start a blog or something. Look out.
You know what? There's always going to be assholes who argue that, yes, while Andy Serkis is doing the bulk of the work, it's the people who put the special effects and like make his.
I'm telling you, I saw a video yesterday promoting this movie. It's a minute long. It's a Caesar speech from War, and it starts on Andy Serkis in the mocap gear. And over the course of it, it fades into Caesar in the movie, and that will give you the appreciation. Yes, the artists are doing amazing work, but the performance is still him, and you can see it.
The idea then is to send everybody who's an asshole that video then, because that's what everybody... There was talk, even though I didn't agree with it, that Zoe Saldana should have gotten nominated for Avatar back in the day because of, and she's basically animated, bullshit in that movie.
Yeah.
Not talking about Zoe Saldana. Just talking about her characters just animated. And there was just talk that she should have gotten nominated for that, but then everybody's like, well, yeah, but aren't the makeup of the special effects guys just as responsible for her performance as
you know what?
is?
Let's just get it. Let's create a new goddamn category.
Yeah, give it to them too, man.
That's the weird thing. Like they are so reticent to come up with new categories. Like there's been people talking about doing Oscars for stunts for years.
Yep.
More like it's been decades, and for whatever reason they never back off of that. But they'll still give out these boring ass other awards.
Yeah.
Like, stunts would be awesome. You can imagine what they could do at the Oscar ceremony by having stunts as an Oscar.
Well, and how much more watchable it would make it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's the way they should be thinking. So I'm looking out for your best interests, Oscar. Yeah, man, those movies are... I don't know what it is. Is it because they're apes is it because they're apes that it's so easy to make them special?
I was almost asked that because, and again, I know I'm on an island here with regard to Favreau's Jungle Book, but, and maybe even Life of Pi, but the animals in those movies look nowhere near as perfect as the apes do, and I'm wondering if it's like a species thing, like because they're so humanoid.
Yeah.
Maybe it's somehow easier to animate them realistically than it is a lion. I don't know.
No, I don't know because they actually do act like apes in that movie. They do apish things. They communicate, most of the time through sign language and things like that. So I don't know why, because it's just absolutely perfect.
And more backing up to your Andy Serkis thing, though. I mean, remember, this is the guy who did Gollum, who's obviously not in any way like a regular human life form, even though he's close, I guess. I mean, whatever. That was the first time we saw that kind of special effect really work with Gollum. And so it could be mostly performance. And there's one guy or two guys, and we can also give Tony Cabell some love there too. But Toby Kebbell, is it Cabell or Cabell?
I think it's Kebbell.
Okay,
that's what I.
So both of those guys are like maybe they're the only guys who are good at it.
I don't know. Yeah,
because I don't know. Like they tried that mocap with Polar Express, and everything looks lifeless. And those are human beings.
They did it with that Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, that
both
was
of
creepy.
those were Zemeckis.
That's like the worst Christmas Carol ever made.
Both of those were Zemeckis movies. There was this talk about Zemeckis trying to outdo Cameron with his.
Well, because he did that Beowulf movie too.
Yeah.
So he had a stretch there where he was like, "I'm going to do."
That's when everything looked like that bullshit Scorpion King from Mummy Returns.
Why do you do that? Because fuck that. Why would you want to have regular humans who are terrific actors animated? Now, it makes sense with Apes, and it makes sense with King Kong or something like that. But it doesn't make sense if you're trying to take an already capable actor and then animate that actor.
Well, especially since Polar Express would be so easy to shoot live action.
Right.
It's such a limited set. There's so much snow.
I feel like Zemeckis was trying to start some sort of revolution there where they wouldn't even need the actor anymore or whatever, that type of thing. Because there was talk about that. Like, see how good this is? Like, that's the future, and we're going to be having people just have mocap stuff on them all the time and everything. And, you realize how lifeless it is, back then at least. I mean, they could have gotten it better. Who knows? But, I was looking at some others that I wrote down here. Ex Machina has great special effects.
Boy, they have amazing special effects. Seamless.
Yes.
How the fuck did they do that?
Right. You're sitting there going, I know that's an actress right there. But it doesn't look like they put a blue cap on her or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, how'd they do that? Yeah. I mean, I've actually never seen how they did that. Have you guys ever seen
I haven't, no.
I'm going to have to look that up.
But the part where she's putting on the skin?
Yes.
I heard
Jesus
they
Christ,
actually
man.
created an AI android for the film. Much like they made BB-8 as a real robot to make Force Awakens.
Oh. Wow. Did it pass the Turing test?
I don't know.
It did. So ironically, while making the movie, while making the movie about that,
I would also go right back to that Okja movie I watched last night.
Are they good effects?
The only real CG is the pig.
Mm-hmm.
And the basic premise is they've genetically modified this super pig, and they have 26 of them. I think it's 26. And they send them all out to like the best farmer in each region of the world to raise for 10 years. Then they're going to come back with Jake Gyllenhaal later and pick the best one. And that's the one that they're going to base all the future genetic pigs on that are going to feed the planet forever. And so we hop 10 years, and now he's bonded with this girl. And the movie is sort of her journey to try and save him from his should-be inevitable fate. And there's no doubt in your mind you're looking at CG. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen because I don't even think they tried to make it look super hyper-realistic. Because, you know what? A pig the size and color of a hippopotamus in this shape in this movie, that doesn't really exist. So there's no way to completely suspend your disbelief anyway. And it's almost like they decided to use the performance of the CG as a way to charm you and draw you in, and it works amazingly well. A lot of the credit goes to the little girl who's playing opposite nothing, basically. But you're never fooled into thinking this is not CGI, but it's I guess drawn, animated so well in terms of its personality and movement that it really just suckers your brain. And not caring what the visuals
That's a
like.
That's a cool idea. That's a cool way to approach it because it's almost like a Gestalt type of thing.
Yeah.
If you have this character in here, no matter what it looks like, I mean the same thing with E.T. I guess like back then you just accepted whatever it was in front of you, and then you humanized it or personified it, and then you become attached to it, and you don't really care about it.
Yeah,
that's a good way to approach it.
A couple other movies that I thought of on this was The Matrix, obviously. Matrix is another movie that I don't think works without its groundbreaking effects. And of course, they invented all sorts of shit just to make that movie. The Matrix is another good one. Another one,
and then it got worse. I'm
did.
sorry to cut you off, but why did it get worse? the technology got better as the sequels came out.
Well, the problem is they bit off more than they could chew.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, instead of upping the stakes by 2 or 3, let's up it by 200. Literally, let's make him fight 200 Agent Smiths. And they just simply couldn't invent tech good enough to make that look less rubbery.
I know, but within the existing technology, the existing universe that was so groundbreaking, they could have just tweaked it.
This was
just a little bit.
That was such a story that needed to be smaller than what it was by the end of it. Like, they tried to make it this really big thing. Don't blame them, but it really should have just been, a little bit simpler. Each movie should have been, not going for all this. I don't know how else to say it. It's just the way it went too far.
Mm-hmm.
One that you may not think about today, but groundbreaking effects is Babe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
It's the first time animal lips had moved, right?
Well, it's the first time they made it look good.
Yeah.
I believe. Like, they may have done it before. Of course, Mr. Ed, the old, where they had, they put, peanut butter in his mouth.
That's exactly what they do.
There's always that joke about them shoving a carrot up his ass to do it.
But they also, I think they had, with other talking animals in the past, they had maybe animated something on them, and it looked just bad enough where you're like, okay, well, I guess I see them talking.
Like those Conan O'Brien mouths on Celebrity Faces.
yeah. But Babe was the first one that really made it look like they are actually talking. And there's really I haven't seen Babe in forever. Maybe it looks terrible now.
No.
But you look at it and it looks like the animals are talking, and there's not any digital looking nonsense around their mouth areas and everything. That was done really well, and it's another one that I can't imagine not having the effects that it has.
Yeah.
So.
That is such a charming movie. I just watched it a few weeks ago with my wife, and it holds up super well. The animation, the story, the way the little mice always chirp to open each new chapter.
Yeah.
It's a great message that, you can't do everything, but you can do more than people pigeonhole you as. And I love that duck.
Yeah.
Christmas means carnage! It's a great movie. Good pick. I also want to throw out Gravity.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to say something really dumb and redundant, but can't actually go to space to film a movie.
What?
Sure fucking looks like they did, right?
Wait a minute.
Yes,
they didn't
does.
shoot Gravity in space?
No.
Is there gravity in space?
They faked it on the same soundstage where Kubrick did the moon landing.
Yes,
that's right. That's right.
I mean, the terror of this movie doesn't feel real if we don't feel like we're really in space.
Mm-hmm.
And I think much of that movie has so much CGI going on just to create the environment that we don't really give it enough credit. Because in most cases, all he's filming is Sandra Bullock in a suit, and everything else, the ship behind her that she's twirling away from, the planet, the stars, it's all added in after. And yet, that movie has such a great sense of location.
Yep.
I'm just really in awe of how that movie is a technical achievement. But the CG, again, if it doesn't work as well as it does, none of the movie works at all.
Well, that's one that Alfonso Cuarón invented technology to do, to make sure that obviously it doesn't go far enough, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, as far as getting the actual gravity correct or anti-gravity. But yeah, he went to great pains to get all these cameras perfectly situated to where it looked as realistic as possible. And if you don't have that, you don't have the sense of hopelessness, especially at the beginning when she's flipping over. All
it makes me anxious just thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely. And would you consider Interstellar in that same group? It's got good special effects. I just don't know if it's one of those that
I do.
I think it's got great effects, man.
No, it's got great effects. I do wonder if it's not. I mean, do we need them though? It's one that I'm sitting there thinking I guess you do in a way. You have to have the little Tesseract thing at the end. The robots that I
love the robots.
Crazy mobile, even though they're clunky metal things.
And the wave.
The wave.
God damn that wave.
Yeah. But speaking of Nolan, Inception.
Yeah.
It's another one that I don't know if works without the great special effects that it has.
That's a movie I'm in awe that somebody could even think of the idea to do that. And then the execution's so good.
Mm-hmm.
I've said it before, I think, but I think one of the things that made the Star Wars movies, the original ones, so good was that Lucas was quite good in a finale at cutting between different segments, right? So we will see, like in Return of the Jedi, we're cutting between Luke fighting, and we're cutting down onto the planet, and we're cutting up to the ship battle that's going on, and there's 3 distinct elements to this finale. And Inception does that, but they're all on different levels.
Yeah,
so they're all moving at different speeds.
Yeah.
And there's different effects happening. And that van is falling for like a half an hour of the movie. It's almost too brilliant.
Yeah.
But he does the visuals perfectly to sell the concept.
You have to have those effects to do, especially when they're setting up the world building with Ellen Page and DiCaprio.
Oh, yeah.
In that scene where this is what's happening here, this is what you can do. If you didn't have that element, yes, you would still have probably a great movie, but that's what makes it excellent.
Yeah, yeah. And then sort of building on that, Doctor Strange did that sort of the same type of Inception kind of effects afterwards to great effect, I think, as well. Even though, again, like with a lot of Marvel movies, when you see like creatures out in outer space and everything, they always have this cartoony look to them.
Yeah.
So like even Doctor Strange, as good as the visual effects are in that movie, it's like stuff like that always sort of takes me out a lot of times. I was watching Men in Black recently, and I think that movie has some pretty good effects, but it's 20 years old now, and you can see a lot of the seams in it, but it has some of that same quality of like, you see some of the creatures and it's like, it's too cartoony. It's too colorful.
Yeah.
There's some, especially that last cockroach guy at the end that Vincent D'Onofrio is playing the whole time. It's like he's just too much of a cartoon. But overall, back in 1997, that was pretty good.
Well, you're getting that in all the comic book movies, even like you said with Doctor Strange. And as visually stunning as that is, there's some times where you see like a Rubber Neo type of thing when they're bouncing through all that stuff. And fucking Wonder Woman does that, man.
Yeah.
Of all the praise that's being heaped onto Wonder Woman, justifiably so, that middle scene in there where she's kicking ass is cool because she's kicking ass, but there's a lot of just like, what the there's a cartoon character on the screen all of a sudden.
Highest grossing DC movie ever now.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Past The Dark Knight.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's excellent, but that's the type of thing that I don't like.
It's past The Dark Knight Rises. The first Dark Knight it is not. Like maybe worldwide it is. It might be worldwide.
I will tell you, I saw a headline, and I'm pretty sure it said Wonder Woman now the highest grossing DC movie ever. I didn't investigate any further than that. I should maybe not just drop that shit casually on the podcast when I don't know what I'm talking about.
I think you're right. It's just that they're now more looking at worldwide, and worldwide is now they can just totally
obliterate what Dark Knight.
But it's made $670 million so far, which I don't think that beats Dark Knight. Dark Knight made $534 domestically. And it made $1 billion. So it has not passed it domestically or worldwide yet. I mean, and it probably won't.
Yeah, what's weird about that is that those USA centric movies, which I guess Wonder Woman fits into, they don't typically, like Captain America and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You don't see those go gangbusters worldwide.
Yeah. All right. Is anything else that you guys want to bring up?
Well, as far as effects movies go, and speaking of going too far, is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. As groundbreaking as they are, again, the shot of Legolas swooping down the elephant and that kind of bullshit. And okay, that's one thing, but then you always have to up the ante on the battles. There's more orcs, there's more people, there's more of this. And it's like at a certain point you hit like a desensitization where it's like, I don't care if they fill this fucking screen, the entire universe with orcs about to attack this thing. The sense of space has already maxed out for me.
Well, yeah, and in Return of the King, when Aragorn comes back with the dead and everything, the scene where they're like taking down that big huge beast in the background, even that sort of goes, this is a cool scene, but man, it looks kind of jumpy.
Yeah, I know, and it's just like that's a point where I don't think it's needed. I don't think you need to have Legolas sliding down the trunk of the elephant.
Yeah,
like it's plenty good without it.
I will say, as I'm more up with Lord of the Rings effects than I am against them. but it ain't nothing compared to what he did with The Hobbit.
Oh yeah, that's true.
The Hobbit was a ridiculous movie.
Yeah. Okay, so to clarify, the article I read, which is not an article worth writing, by the way, the headline is Wonder Woman is the highest grossing DCEU film in the U.S. So that means Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Suicide Squad.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
So
all right.
that frustrates me. That we're in an era where people write articles about that.
Yeah.
That we're in between real milestones. Let's make up a mini milestone. Or the fact that every goddamn week I see an article on Just Jared. The headline is, does X movie have an end credit scene?
Oh, yeah.
We're making articles about this weekly now for clicks.
Yeah.
Drives me fucking bonkers. Sorry, I just had a little rant there.
Yeah, low bar that Wonder Woman had to go over there, although it's very well deserving of what it's getting, but very low bar it had to go over to get to that number one spot.
So because
with
Dark
all
Knight,
those verbs and modifiers that change it.
Yeah, seriously. So because Dark Knight wasn't part of the DCEU.
Yeah, 2 letters basically screwed up that whole headline.
Yeah.
Jesus.
All right, anything else about special effects?
What do you think?
They're special.
They are special.
They are
should have a special day.
Yeah, I was like looking for some inspiration for this topic and everything, and I saw some movies listed that I would not include. You know, like I guess Transformers has decent effects, but that effect wears off really quickly for me. In the first one, it's fine. Then after that, it just I can see all the the cracks in this whole thing. You know, it just doesn't. It's not as cool anymore.
Yeah.
So
they all run together.
One mentioned A Perfect Storm, which I know that you guys were talking about. The as being a good example, especially back then. It may still hold up as far as, I don't know, I haven't seen it.
It pretty much does. What's weird is that I think really the only big, obviously, set piece or the special effects piece is just the big wave that takes them over.
Yeah.
The rest of it is pretty spot on. I mean, pretty practical.
Yeah. White Squall. Oh, wait. Are we ready for some Q&A?
Sure, baby.
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I am listening.
What are we, some kind of white squall squad?
Oh man, I can't tell you.
Suicide Squall.
This is one of my favorite questions of all time.
Oh, wow.
And I actually had to modify it because I thought of an even better question.
Nice.
So the question was something about if you had to create a musical supergroup using actors that sing or play or singers that act, that kind of thing, who would you do? So I modified it to say if you were to create a musical supergroup using characters from movies, who would you pick?
Ooh, so you cheated somebody out of their question.
Man. Oh,
but it's all right because this is better.
I got a supergroup boner after this.
Well, and what's funny to me is I read through yours and I was like, oh, I might have to stretch to come up with that. Oh, I'm done. And then I was like, well, I wonder who Chris is going to come. Oh, wow, he's got a perfect list. Like we all found the perfect stuff. I'm so giddy to share this.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
All right, so my lead singer is going to be Jimmy from That Thing You Do.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
He's a punk. He's the prick. He treats Liv Tyler bad, but boy can sing.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I quit. I quit.
I quit, Mr. White. My lead guitar is going to be Jason Lee from Almost Famous.
Yeah.
Nice.
Fever dog.
Oh, no, wait, not Jason Lee, the other guy. Jason Lee's the singer.
Billy Crudup?
Billy Crudup? Is he
Billy Crudup is the lead guitar player.
Yeah.
That's who's going to be Keys, Bill Murray from Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
His father was a piano mover.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he also has like 10,000 years of experience.
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
He can play anything. On bass, I'm going to go back to That Thing You Do with Wolfman. This is the guy they have to replace Ethan Embry with when he goes missing. And he does that lick to show off because they're like, can you handle our tune? He's like, I think I can handle it, Junior. I
love that
and
scene.
everybody just goes, okay, all right.
I love that scene so much.
So great. And for drums, Animal from the Muppets.
Oh, you can't go wrong with that, man.
Right?
You really could have the whole Muppet band.
You could. I just wanted some variety. And then for background vocals, I want the kids who do background vocals on School of Rock.
Yeah.
Ooh la la la.
Yeah. Ooh, la, 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 la. Yep. So that's my band. Fucking awesome question. Yes, it is.
All right. So on mine, I have for piano/vocals, Jason Segel from Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Oh, that's good.
Peter Bretter.
Die.
once I got that, I had to come up with some more comedic foils behind him. So in bass guitar, I have Harry Shearer, Derek Smalls. This is Spinal Tap.
That's interesting. I thought about putting the Michael McKean character in there too, because they all play bass and Big Bottom.
Yeah. And when you come up with this Spinal Tap, you're like, I have to consider the entire band.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's like
Except the drummer.
Exactly. That's a great thing. Like you have Ed Begley Jr. doing one like in the '60s or whatever. They all die. But yeah, it's like I already have my super group. This is Spinal Tap, man.
Yeah.
On lead guitar, I have Michael J. Fox, Marty McFly, Back to the Future.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. By the way, as an aside, this is like the third time I've completely derailed us. I'm sorry. Satellite Radio the other day was interviewing Chuck Berry's son. Mm-hmm. And Chuck Berry is, of course, who the guy in Back to the Future calls. Chuck Berry did.
Yeah, Marvin, his cousin, called Chuck. Yeah.
And he did the song.
Johnny Be Good.
Johnny Be Good. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that guy had a fascinating life. Like, they wouldn't let him walk in the front door most of the venues he was playing because he was black.
Wow.
Chuck, are you talking about Chuck?
Chuck Berry.
Really?
Yeah. And there was one gig where the promoter took off in the car that was supposed to be for Chuck Berry to go home in.
Oh, shit.
So the next time he played a gig in that town, he was so much more famous, he drove his car up onto the sidewalk and parked in front of the front door. Right in. Anyway, Back to the Future made me think of that.
Wow. Chuck Berry is a complicated cat, man.
Yep.
People
when he died, there was a lot of like, you had to kind of go, well, legend in rock and roll, also a legend at being a bastard off the...
Exactly. Exactly. And that got very much swept under the table, especially with music publications. They were just like, oh, this legend, this wonderful, all these wonderful obituaries. Yes, he was super influential, but he also filmed women going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So you can't really overlook that.
Yeah. As an aside, I think it's perfectly okay to talk about somebody's legacy and talk about the shitty things that they did, and can separate those two things.
Yep.
And I understand that maybe in some of these cases they shouldn't have careers after those things that they did. Mm-hmm. But those things are separate to me. Yep. They don't make any difference one way or the other.
All of our heroes are probably assholes.
Yeah, probably. Everybody's got a thing that if we found out, we wouldn't like them anymore.
Yeah.
To round out my band, I have Rainn Wilson, Fish, the rocker on drums.
All right, so I had never seen that movie. So he's a drummer and he's trying to bust into the music industry.
Yeah, it's like a YouTube sensation type thing, and he plays naked.
Oh, that's
I buried the lead.
I'm not sure that sells me on the movie more or less.
But look. At first I thought Miles Teller and Whiplash, but he doesn't go along with those guys.
No.
And then I was like, Nick Cannon and Drumline. No, can't do that.
And of course, I'd already taken Animal.
Yeah, and he'd already taken Animal, and you had somebody awesome. So I was like, okay, comedy drummers.
Nice.
We're gonna do Rainn Wilson. We're gonna make him.
That works.
He's the naked drummer, man.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like your bands, man. I would listen to your bands.
I would listen to both of your bands.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so my singer is going to be Anna Kendrick from Pitch Perfect.
Yeah.
So you've got just adorableness up front. You've got range. She does all these mashups, so she's able to kind of go in between all that stuff. Great voice, too. My guitarist is going to be Iman from Sing Street. So this is one of the most fascinating characters I've seen in the last 5 years. He's a musical prodigy. He can play anything, and the lead character shows up, and he's just like, I want to form a band. And he's like, all right, and he goes in, and he's this like mercurial like geek that can just do anything. And he's an awesome guitarist. So that's my pick.
Good pick.
Nice.
The flautist in my group.
The flautist?
Yes. We're going to have like a Jethro Tull type of...
Definitely. You have to have a flautist.
It's going to be Ron Burgundy. Who can play some jazz flute.
Yes. Well, and he can just appear out of nowhere from, Oh,
I love that scene so much because he starts out like... It's like, oh, now we got it. All right.
It's so absurd. You're not expecting it.
Oh, it's my favorite. My pianist is going to be Sebastian from La La Land,
Good
Ryan
pick.
Gosling
Good pick.
character. He can definitely perform within different types of bands, including John Legend's shitty jazz fusion thing.
Yep.
On drums is going to be Garth Algar.
Yep.
From Wayne's World. Man, that scene is crazy too, man, because he goes at it. Dana Carvey can actually play.
He slams it down, man.
He's basically a human animal from the Muppets.
Yeah. I had a rough time on bass because I wanted to see, you mentioned Jason Segel earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to pick Jason Segel from I Love You Man.
Oh, yeah.
But then I realized that he doesn't play bass. But he doesn't actually play bass. So Paul Rudd plays bass and he plays the guitar, even though Geddy Lee plays bass in Rush. So I went with Scott Pilgrim.
Oh,
yeah.
Who's got a great
and he's good.
bass. Yes. Doom, 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 doom. He's very simple. Yeah.
Where's Sex Bomb?
We came here to kick ass.
Usually, we want to get to, what is it? We want to get depressed about stuff or something like that. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, we want to play punk and get depressed and shit.
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember the whole line. The people who love I love Scott Pilgrim, and I can't remember that line. But there's people right now who are dying. They're like, "That's the exact line as this."
Who is that character? Who is that girl that plays drums in that?
Oh, it's Alison Pill.
Yeah,
Alison Pill. Oh God, she's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. I love that question. We could answer that question again, and I'd be happy.
Moving right along.
Footloose and fancy free.
Hey, you know the Muppet song.
Yeah, baby. Due to the mass adaptation is what I was about to say.
Yeah. Want to conversate about the adaptation?
Due to the mass adoption of the DVD format and the overflowing bargain bins at Blockbuster? My movie collection is largely composed of early 2000s turds like Swordfish and Romeo Must Die.
Nice.
Two very good turds.
Yeah, which nonetheless were watched many, many times. Do you have any movies that for one reason or another have an unduly high viewings to quality ratio? Awesome question.
Yeah, it is. Although I have to admit, I was stumped for a bit.
That's crazy.
Because usually, if a movie I don't like the movie, I don't give it many chances.
Mm-hmm.
I did discuss this though earlier in another podcast that I've given Mallrats a lot of line.
Yeah.
I've watched it 5 times, and that's the one answer that I could come up with. I'm sure that there's some others, but even stuff like that I mentioned in this episode, like the Ladykillers, I haven't watched that past like a second time.
When did you start really like collecting? Have you always had because you lost a lot of your DVDs?
Well,
right?
I lost my entire DVD collection.
Yeah,
from moving. And I had a small collection of VHS tapes in the 90s, and I started buying Laserdiscs. I still have the Laserdiscs.
You still have them?
Oh yeah.
Do you have the player?
No.
Oh, man.
I could get one though.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Not that I need to, but the thing is about Laserdiscs that make it cumbersome. It's not like getting a record player or something like that. It's like watching a movie and then like change the side on it. Oh, fucking ridiculous. But I have a ton of Laserdiscs. I used to get those all the time. And then I started a big DVD collection.
Mm-hmm.
Lost those, but Blu-rays were coming in at the time, so.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's more than 20, it's been 25 years that I've been collecting movies.
Mm-hmm.
This is the biggest, obviously, I've ever gotten it.
Yeah. And like 95% of those are Blu-ray, right?
Yeah, there's a few DVDs mixed in because you can't get some of the things on Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out, do I have everything that I had on VHS and DVD and Laserdisc over the years? And there's probably maybe 1 or 2 that I'm missing.
That's it?
Like, I had Pink Floyd The Wall on cassette.
Uh-huh.
I don't have that on Blu-ray.
Oh, is that even out on Blu-ray?
I'm not sure if it is.
Oh,
it may not be.
But
I think I've pretty much covered most of my DVD collection. I can't call off the top of my head anything that I'm missing from those days. But I do have an extensive collection here.
I want to see those laser discs.
Yeah, I'll whip it out. Whip it out, man. But that's the one I can think of. There might be more. There might be some people who don't like certain movie that I played a bunch of times, but I can't think of anything right now.
Mm-hmm.
Mallrats is the one though, because I've given that movie a lot of chances.
You've got mail.
Oh,
It's all my wife's fault. No one in the world prefers You've Got Mail to Sleepless in Seattle.
That's true.
No one. Because there is a quality disparity between the two.
Absolutely.
Sleepless in Seattle is a good movie that even non-girly movie-liking guys can watch and enjoy.
Yeah.
You've Got Mail is a schlocky, sloppy attempt to cash in on that pairing yet again. My wife adores this movie. I don't know what happened when she saw it. I don't know if she was touched by some kind of magic. She loves it. If it's on, she will watch it. She will abandon anything else she's watching to watch You've Got Mail. And it used to drive me crazy, and now I'm just used to it. It's like white noise. Like, oh, You've Got Mail is on again. I know exactly what every line of dialogue is in this scene because if I want to spend any time with my wife, I've seen this movie 12 times already.
And it's a remake.
And it's a remake. Yeah, completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
A fun turn from Steve Zahn, maybe, or Dave Chappelle if you're really trying to stretch and look for something positive to say about this movie. I don't know why she likes it, but...
How dated is that movie now? I haven't seen it since it came out.
Pretty goddamn dated when it comes to the computer stuff, that's for sure.
It's like AOL or
it's
something
like
that,
AOL. The laptops are ginormous bricks. But, you know, I try not to pay that much attention when it's on. But that's probably the shittiest movie I've seen the most.
Yeah.
The only other one I thought about answering was Les Mis, but the only reason I saw Les Mis 7 times was that I saw it once in the theater with my wife and then 6 times when I was trying to sin that fucker.
And it's super long, too,
It's
right?
super long, and I didn't really like it the first time, and each successive viewing just grew that hatred. If I could murder a movie, that would be the first one I would murder.
I'm pretty sure that's one of our angriest videos, too.
I know, because you have so much potential with that opening Hugh Jackman number and that Anne Hathaway number in the middle, and it's just that everything else around it is just frustrating.
Yeah. I've got a lot of kind of middling movies. Like I watched 8 Mile a lot, and 8 Mile is not a great movie by any stretch, but it's not terrific.
Man.
I think the last third is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I don't have much interest in the first 2/3.
Yeah, 8 Mile's one of those movies that you look fondly back on as far as like all the battle stuff. But yeah, like all the other stuff.
Eminem trying to emote.
Yeah. And all that the whole thing with Brittany Murphy never works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, so but I have watched it just mostly because of that last battle there. Also, I had Legally Blonde on here because I've watched that a lot on DVD. Also, somewhat because of my wife. But that's the pretty funny movie too. But my biggest one is the Hughes brothers From Hell.
Oh my!
Man, I gave up on the Hughes brothers after the second one, All About the Benjamins or whatever.
Movie straight up. By the way, I was not working in movie theaters when From Hell came out. Jeremy was still working at Hollywood 27. He let me in. I watched From Hell. I fell asleep.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you.
Fell asleep in the movie.
It's a boring ass movie,
and I woke up and I was like, I need to get out of here. I just need to go. Like I can't follow anything else after this. I know who knows how long I was sleeping.
Oh,
it was probably.
I'm sorry, it's Dead Presidents, not All About the Benjamins.
Oh,
it's their second, because they made
Dead Presidents is good.
They made the Menace to Society, right? And then Dead President. You liked it?
Dead Presidents?
Yeah. Oh, I really hated that movie. It's
got a great soundtrack.
No, I love Dead Presidents. Now, if I watch it now, it's probably terrible or something. But
I don't know what compelled the Hughes brothers, who had done Dead Presidents and Menace to Society, to do a Jack the Ripper
probably
period piece.
Trying to stretch out.
Yeah, it's shitty though.
I mean, look, you have if you're and these guys are black directors and they're made to make these like gangster pictures all the time. That it's time to stretch out.
No,
now,
I understand that.
Now they could have done something a lot more with it, and I think that's probably what they're trying to tone down something. I don't know what it was, but
such a weird movie, man.
But yeah, you're right. It is a weird movie. And
Johnny Depp's an opium addict. Heather Graham has an English accent and is a whore.
Yeah.
And then
she's always playing whores though.
Yeah, a hua. But and Ian Holmes has this weird man, it's a shitty movie, but I've watched it a lot for whatever reason.
Wow. I've never seen it once, and now I won't. Thank you, Barrett.
If you are a successful writer, director, or actor, but only in a specific film genre, like action or comedy, what profession would you choose, and what genre would you choose to work in?
I feel like I would be a writer / director, and I would do comedies. That's where I would go. Comedy is where you have, I think, the most chance to sort of invent a lot of things. Like you can, and I like the idea of it all coming together. Like comedy is hard, I think, to see in front of you while it's being filmed, of it being super funny. Like, I think that, you know, people act these things out a lot of times and it's like, okay, I think this is funny. I'm not sure it is. It really has to kind of come together, and you have to be a guy that kind of can kind of feel whether this is going to work when you cut it all together and everything. And so,
oh yeah, I mean, because we see it in the Sins videos. What's written on the page is not necessarily going to translate with footage, with the way, you know, it comes off in vocalizations and things like that.
Well,
there's a million different variables you have to put together to make it funny.
As an example, back in college, I wrote a script for a horror movie trailer and it was a comedy. It was a spoof of one or whatever. And I wrote out this script, and I was sitting there imagining it in my head. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be so fucking funny. And unfortunately, I can't find it to this day. I would definitely post that shit because I'm a young motherfucker in that video. But I did this. We did this horror trailer. Now I gave the script to, because we did this in college. There was a couple other guys that I was doing this with. They read the script, and we had a whole bunch of scripts that we were trying to do for skits and video skits and stuff. And they read it, and they're like, okay, that's pretty good. And I was like, oh, no, seriously, this is going to be way better than you're giving it credit for. And so we did it. We shot it, you know, in that one night, got edited and everything, and everybody. And I remember being in there with the guy who was editing it and everything, and I was like, this is exactly coming together the way I want it and everything. And when people saw it, it's like, yes, that's awesome. I wasn't really thinking about that when I was reading the script and everything. So it takes somebody to kind of be able to not only know what's funny written on the page, but what looks funny, what's going to be funny later on. So that's what I would do.
Nice. What about you?
I too would be a writer, but I would go to the world of sci-fi.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
It's probably my favorite genre of all entertainment. TV, film, books, comic books are obviously in a sci-fi world. The book that I wrote is in a sci-fi world. I used to want to be a director. I used to want to be an actor. I don't know if I have the right talent for that stuff. And certainly when it comes to director, sometimes I watch a movie, I'm just like, if I were the director, I would have fucked this up so many different ways.
Oh, yeah?
Like, I just don't have the experience. I don't have the knowledge, the understanding of camera angles and equipment. So I don't think I would want to try, because I wouldn't want to fail spectacularly at that.
Yeah.
But I've been writing all my life, and I've been writing screenplays since college. So that's where I'm going to stay. That's my wheelhouse. And sci-fi just lets me do anything I want. You know, I can go in any direction I want.
That is freeing.
Yeah, very free.
I think I'd like to direct. Partially of what you just said. Yes, I have no idea about, you know, lenses and this and angles and things like that. But there's a certain amount of delegation that you can do to the people who do know what they're doing. And, you know, a good cinematographer or a good cameraman or especially good actors. And you get the most out of them. You could have the greatest screenplay in the world, or you could have the greatest, you know, editing in the world. And if you don't have a good performance to chop up, then it's kind of dead before it takes off. So I'd like to direct drama, just because I want to get shit out of people, man. I want to be like up in their grills and be like, emote, motherfucker, you know, like get them to cry and get them to feel joy and get that expression out there. I think it'd be fun as shit.
There's a certain amount of being a director on a film or play that I think is very much like being a general manager of a retail establishment. Right?
Yeah.
I was an assistant manager at a Kroger. When asked what that job was like, I used to say, it's kind of like there's 32 different holes in the dike and you don't have enough fingers. So it's got to decide which holes are the most important to plug with your fingers. And I think there's a lot of that in directing a movie, right? If you have a really great cinematographer, you don't have to spend as much time worrying about the blocking or the lens, right? If you have great actors, you don't have to worry about coaching them so much. But it's more about steering all these moving pieces toward the overall vision. I think you'd be very good at that.
Thank you.
All right, well, that'll do it for this week. Please keep going to SoundCloud and giving us your thoughts.
Yes, please do.
Thoughts.
In the last episode, we had a lot of good interactions in the comments in the SoundCloud. Keep going to that. We want to hear from you, and we want to, get back to you and stuff like that.
We do. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we go back in there and reply pretty regularly.
Yeah.
At least for the first week of an episode until we put a new one out.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for this week. It's Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, and Barrett Scherer. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit Cinemasins.com.
And I rarely do volume checks because when I hear it, it's like it sounds pretty fine to me unless it's just way off the charts. And I was like, that sounds a little off the charts. And he goes, well, actually, it's actually a little bit below pegging it, but it's just the way that scene is. It's so annoying.
Let's talk about how much of a dick Barrett is.
Well, that will fill an entire episode, probably.
We should do that sometime.
One day.
We should do a roast of Barrett.
That's right.
Never you or me.
That's right.
Just Barrett.
Just Barrett. Because he's the only one that deserves to be roasted.
He's the only deserving little motherfucker.
That's right. Well, I can't really describe in words how much of a dick he is. Oh, my God.
Oh, Jesus, I'm an asshole. Oh, the stuff that comes out of my mouth sometimes.
Yes.
And the stuff that goes in, to be honest.
That's true. That's so true. Usually it's Barrett.
Speaking of Barrett. Oh, well, this is unusable.
Yes.
I took us to a dark place,
mm-hmm.
as I am wont to do.
That's right. We barely saw the light at the end of the tunnel, but we got our ways back out.
I think he's going to the bathroom again.
He kind of is.
But he went to the bathroom back at the restaurant.
He did. He's got problems.
Hey, we were talking about you.
Did you call me a pee-pee machine?
Oh, wait, I did just now. That pales in comparison to what I said about 45 seconds ago.
Oh, my God.
That'll be a good surprise when you're going through it.
Can't wait.
I was watching a little bit of Pineapple Express the other day.
That movie grows on you.
It kind of does. And and James Franco is he's just funny because I don't know, he makes choices a lot of times where you're like, fucking James Franco. But in that movie, I don't know, it works so well because he's sitting there watching like the Jeffersons or something, and there's that one line where there's like, that's something I said about my last husband, and he's like, he's eating cereal.
I laugh so hard every time when he tries to kick that police car window out while he's driving, and his foot just gets stuck in it, and it never fails to make me laugh, even though I know it's coming.
I like the when the guy comes up. The guy comes up to get the weed in the middle of when Seth Rogen is over there, and like his friend comes up and he's like, "You got any oxy?" He's like, "What the fuck are you talking about, man? I don't have any fucking oxy. Fuck you, man."
Yeah. I can't remember when Seth Rogen starts criticizing him, what he's criticizing him about, but they're out in the woods or whatever, and he's lying on the car, and he says something about, I guess like he's not responsible, or he's not really. I don't know, something about, I don't know what it is, but Franco's like, thank you. And Seth Rogen's like, not a compliment. And Franco still got that weird little smile on his face, like, still not fazing me.
There's a lot of weird shit to that movie. I mean, the Danny McBride character being unkillable, and like Craig Robinson in that movie. Like, there's just little parts of that movie that all work together.
The first time I saw it, I was pretty underwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I've probably seen it 3 or 4 times total, and every time I like it a little more.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fucking violent. Like, I didn't expect it to be that violent.
It's pretty shockingly violent.
Yeah.
And
but it is. It's like super violent. It's like, but I just still love that. I love that part where Rogen's like, he's going to serve him papers, and he witnesses the murder or whatever, and he's like, dude. And then like Gary Cole like shoots that dude in the head and the blood splatters all over the window. And he's like sitting there in mid toke and he's like,
it's like that Jason Mantzoukas line
yeah.
in the house trailer.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
You better tell your friends.
I must see that movie.
I hope you're not underwhelmed after all your excitement for it.
I hope not either. But...
I watch those trailers, and the more trailers I see, the less I understand what this movie really is about. Mm-hmm. But it does seem pretty funny.
Well, the one that's like the first one has so much going on in it, and I love those like tiny slivers of a look at things because you're like, how did they get to this point? And you can see all sorts of different things going on in that, where it's just like it looks like they just made it where it's like this shit gets fucking crazy down in their basement and everything, and that's what I'm looking forward to. Will Ferrell looks like he's back to being Will Ferrell.
Yeah, it looks like a vehicle for him.
Did you see that article the other day where it came out that they hired Shane Black to be an actor in Predator because they secretly just wanted him to doctor the script as a screenwriter, but he didn't want to do it, so that's why they killed him off so early in the movie.
Oh, really?
Because they were like, we only hired you as an actor for your writing. If you're not going to write, we're just going to kill you off. And that's what they did.
What was this?
Shane Black.
In what?
In the original Predator. He's like one of the first guys killed off.
Oh, yeah?
And it's because they hired him as an actor just so they could use his writing skills to doctor the script, and he didn't want to do that. He was trying to be more of an actor at that point than a writer.
Oh.
And so they killed him off.
That's awesome.
And now he's directing the second remake.
He's actually directing it, right?
Yeah, he's writing and directing it, and I don't know. We'll see.
By the way, IMDb, 584 votes in. House has a 5.7. That's not a good sign.
No, that's not.
Oh, shit. The House has got a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, shit. This is a very bad sign.
Oh,
we may have
my
hitched
God.
our wagon.
How many reviews?
Let's see.
17%.
And 47% audience score.
3.4
average rating. 35 reviews counted.
Jesus.
6 fresh, 29 rotten.
I think you might be looking at a Horrible Bosses 2
Guess I'm going to have to
situation.
Wait for that on Blu-ray.
How quickly your hopes have been dashed.
Immediately.
It's been like 45 seconds.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
If it had been like a 70-something, you would have still been excited. But 17?
Yeah, 17.
That's pretty terrible.
Yeah, 17's a territory where it's just shitty.
Yeah. Like Beverly Hills Ninja shitty.
Yeah. But you never know with these comedies, man. I mean, some comedies come out, they're not funny at all, and they get like this amazing, audience reaction and everything, and then some of the movies like this, people are expecting one thing and they get another, and maybe that's what it is about the House, and they're not getting what they're expecting, and it's tanking because of it. And then, when I watch it 6 months down the road, I'm going to have a different experience with it.
Yeah, you might enjoy it because your expectations have been lowered.
Yeah.
I bet it'll have a rad outtakes, like blooper reel thing.
Oh, yeah.
You can't have that many like funny people.
Oh, I know.
I don't know. I've never seen the Ghostbusters blooper reel, the recent one.
Yeah,
I wonder if that was any good.
I doubt it.
Man.
Probably still better than the movie.
If they cut out funnier stuff from the outtakes, then
God, that movie sucks ass.
There was something wrong with every bit of the process of making that movie. Then.